You work hard. You show up. You hold things together when no one else will. And yet, no matter how much you do, you feel like it's not enough. Not at work, not at home, not in your relationships. And if you're like a lot of women who overfunction, not even in your own mind does it feel like enough. You tell yourself, I should be able to handle this. I should be stronger. I should be grateful. But the truth is, you're exhausted. You're running on fumes. And deep down, there's a quiet panic that if you ever stop doing, stop helping, stop fixing, everything's going to fall apart. And that feeling, even though sometimes life demands that you step up and work that hard, that feeling is overfunctioning, and overfunctioning all the time is a trauma response. Now, if you grew up in a house where things were chaotic, where adults didn't show up, they didn't plan ahead, or they just couldn't cope, you learned early that keeping things together was how you could keep your life from getting out of control. You could keep the shame away of being, shabby, messy, unprepared, broke, totally overwhelmed. Someone had to hold the family upright, and somehow it became you. Did you play that role? I did. If you're like me, you learn to notice every detail, every silence, every subtle shift in tone in the grown-ups. You learn to predict the next problem before it happened and then fix it before anyone else even saw it. You might have been praised for being mature for your age or responsible, the strong one. But what nobody noticed was that you were terrified because you knew if you let go, everything might crumble. And now, as an adult, you're still doing it. You keep the household functioning, sure. You carry the emotional weight. You do the planning, the worrying, the apologizing, the connecting to everybody. And it's not because you like control. It's because you can't stand watching things spin out. And then you tell yourself, this is just who you are, competent, dependable, strong. But under that, do you know what's driving your overfunctioning? It's fear. The fear that if you ever stop managing, the chaos is going to come back. And the chaos that we used to experience as kids was no joke. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I started becoming self-conscious about fitting in and being pretty, like other kids, other girls. But it was hard because my mom's alcoholism meant that our house was messy. I didn't have clean clothes most days. We didn't have a washing machine. We didn't even have hot water for a couple years. So I didn't have anyone to help me keep track of homework. And I was constantly getting caught out unprepared for tests at school. Or I had dirty hair. I sometimes had like rat's nests in the back. I was just a little too young to manage all that stuff, by myself well. And so one time in 5th grade, so I guess I would have been, 11? I remember I was sitting at my desk like this with my, leaning on my elbows, maybe listening to the teacher. And I all of a sudden looked down. I looked down at my arms and they were totally dirty. There was just like dirt all over my arms. And I was so embarrassed, and I was licking my hand and trying to rub it off. And I just didn't have it all together yet. And literally nobody was supervising me. And by the time I was 13 or 14, I started working overtime to look normal. I took my clothes to the laundromat. I got up 2 hours before I had to leave for school so that I could do my hair and then rush off to school, of course, without eating anything because I was tripping out about my weight all the time. And I'd eat junk food at school. And then I'd come home tired. I started to obsess on what homework was due the next day because I just had never been able to keep track of that. So I drew a calendar inside my notebook. It had this manila paper folder inside, and I drew a calendar. And I would sit there in class when I was bored and draw the lines not with a ruler, but like a folded piece of paper. It just made everything feel so orderly and it just felt really good. I loved making calendars. I still do. And so I could keep track of my assignments. I could write what was due when, and I could cross off the days. And it worked. I felt appropriate for the first time. And I felt not ashamed. And I wanted that feeling to go on forever. And so I got more and more into managing my schedule and my environment. And at a certain point, I'd say when I was 20, And I was working at a pizza place. I had moved to California. I was living in this cruddy apartment with no heat. I was putting myself through college because my parents had totally taken their attention off of me long before I left home. My competence turned into like compulsively doing things. And I was stressed out all the time. The good side was I got straight A's in college. The bad side was my stomach hurt all the time and I couldn't sleep and I was angry all the time and I was sad all the time and I was so alone. And yeah, it was a hard time in my life. So, people always say youth is wasted on the young. I was so pretty. I didn't feel it. I mean, even when I graduated, it felt like nothing to me. I was disappointed in the celebration my family organized. I mean, they did. They actually had a little graduation party for me. And it had the weirdness, I have an alcoholic family, so there were shortcomings, but they did it. They came to town and they had this buffet thing and I was able to invite friends. And I look back and I'm like, that's pretty good. But nothing felt like enough to me then. That emptiness, by the way, is very much a trauma symptom. And if you think trauma in your early life may still be affecting you now, I've got a list of signs that you may want to check out. So I've organized them in the form of a quiz that you can take. It's a free PDF, and I'll put a link to that download in the top line of the description section below this video. So overfunctioning, it looks like being Superwoman, or we want it to, or we think it does. We see ourselves as the only person who can handle the problems of the day, even other people's problems, or tasks that they left unfinished. And we take them on, even though we weren't asked to, and even though other people could do these things for themselves. So it's like being on a treadmill. But really, it's the nervous system trying to outrun all the chaos that you imagine is behind you. It feels like if you could stay one step ahead, if you can always just be one step ahead, maybe you can have some peace. If you could handle everyone's needs and anticipate every disaster, you could prevent the explosions that used to wreck your world. And that habit saved you once. But now it's running your life and it's robbing you of peace and it's probably pushing people away. Because no matter how perfectly you manage, the world will still be unpredictable. And problems keep happening. The kitchen keeps getting messy again and again. And every time you overextend, you quietly teach everyone around you that, you'll handle it. You'll pick up the slack. So they do less and you do more. And it pisses you off. And the harder you work to keep life running, the more you confirm your deepest fear that no one else is going to do it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you can't face your fear, you can't take a break. It produces too much anxiety. And you mistake that anxiety for proof that you're never enough. So how do you start to break this cycle without letting your world fall apart? Because that actually is a risk. You're not imagining that there's a lot to do. All right, step 1, notice when your fear of collapse is running the show. When that voice in your head is saying, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it, I have to do everything. Stop. Ask yourself, is this truly an emergency? Because usually it's not. It's just that old panic is playing out in real time. It's just that old panic that's just sort of playing out right now, and you don't realize it's a memory. Step 2, let small things slide on purpose. This used to be so hard for me, but let someone else put the trash outside or handle dinner, or let them go hungry, or let them manage the deadline, even if they do it badly, even if it's messy. You're not punishing anyone by stepping away. You're retraining yourself to believe that things can turn out all right. They can be imperfect and still be okay. Step 3 is face your fears. When things get uncomfortable, when you want to jump in and fix something, that's the moment to stay still. The anxiety rises up, and then watch, it'll fade. And not everything on your list has to happen right now. Some things, yes. Some things, you are tripping. You're imagining that it's that urgent. But that's what trauma does. It adds this urgency to everything. And, when this has been going on a long time, it's hard to tell the difference. So this is how you build a new kind of strength, the strength to tolerate disorder long enough to see what your options really are. So these are tiny steps, but they're powerful, and they help you have an experience of not taking care of everything and finding that the world doesn't fall apart. Mostly everything goes okay. It's very liberating. One thing that can help you handle the anxiety that can get triggered when you experiment with letting go is a set of techniques that I call my daily practice. And this is how I face my fearful and resentful thoughts, all this stuff left over from childhood, not to mention all the fears and resentments that have been added on, by re-traumatizing myself. All those years I wasn't healed, just daily stuff that's stressful. I take those fearful and resentful thoughts and I release them so that I can just feel some peace for a little while, so that I can see alternatives and get some clarity with whatever is going on in my day. And I teach that in a free course. I'll put that in the second line of the description section right below this video. Do you know about description sections? Not everybody does. There's 2 lines, precious real estate. It's where you can show things to people. But there's a lot more if you click the little more. It's the word more, it's a link, and it opens up and there's a whole bunch of things. I have so many things to show you. If you want to learn the daily practice, click the thing, you get a free course. You can learn these techniques in under an hour, and there's more content with like FAQs there. And I want to remind everybody they're there because the technique is simple, but the philosophy of it is so counterintuitive that I need to help you see, like, why? Why would we do it this way? Why do you say that? How come it's 2 times a day? So you'll see, all the instructions are there. What the daily practice helps me do is pick my battles, to see my choices, to lose the fear that only pushing on everything is going to make the fear stop. That's a normal feeling for people who grew up like I did, but it's not true. Pushing works in some situations, it's necessary, but sometimes what's called for is letting go and just letting the chips fall where they may. I always love that phrase. Just let go, let the chips fall where they may. And I remember the first time I started experimenting with that, like in the first few months after I learned my daily practice, I realized that I had this intense drive coming from me around the people I knew. I was trying so hard to make relationships be the way I wanted them to be. So it was like there was this driving energy, always leaning into people, come on, be the way I want you to be. And I realized that was pushing, and I decided to stop, and I thought, no way, everybody's just going to drift away. But they didn't. Do you know what they did? They got a lot more comfortable around me. They got closer to me. I didn't need to push. Pushing was actually driving them away. So you'll never find the line between pushing and letting go. There's a right place there. You won't find it unless you experiment a little bit. So you can start with the very small things where nothing terrible can happen either way, and then work your way up to more serious things. Overfunctioning, it's not crazy. It's a trauma adaptation. It's not unfounded that you would have to work very hard sometimes. Overfunctioning has a lot of logic to it, and it's what children do when the grown-ups stop functioning. You took responsibility because no one else did, and that worked. It kept things moving. Good for you. Well played. You did well. But that old survival logic now just makes you tired. And you doing it can hinder other people too. I'm just going to say that. Every time you rush in to keep things together, you take away someone else's chance to grow up, to take responsibility, to experience the consequences of their behavior or indecision or not inaction. And they get to fail. They get to recover from that. They get to learn a lesson from that. That's actually okay. It's positive. If people are robbed of that, it holds them back. So you end up surrounded by people who don't do very much. Not necessarily because they're lazy, but because they're in a system you created where you keep doing everything. In fact, you generate sort of anxious energy when you can't do everything, and people will just sort of instinctively know, okay, let her go, let her do that. The more you carry, the more others will lean on you. And the more they're leaning on you, guess what? The more they resent you. Isn't it funny? I'm sure you've experienced it though. After everything I've done for them, they're so cruel. And let's be honest, you resent them. It's not your imagination. It's a system that shapes itself around your never-ending efforts, and everybody's mad. When you stop overfunctioning, that system changes, and some people will step up. Others are going to leave. Either way, you'll now have a choice about how you want to spend your time and energy. So go easy on yourself, which is a very good mantra, actually, for overfunctioners. Go easy on yourself. You didn't become an overfunctioner because you crave control. You did it because the alternative was chaos. So not guilty. You became the one person who held things together because you were the only one who could. And that was strength on your part. That was kindness. That was love. But you're not that child anymore, and this isn't that house. Holding everything together all the time. By the way, it's not saving anyone. It's stopping your life from moving forward. It keeps people dependent, and it keeps you running on empty. And it keeps you from ever finding out what would happen if you stopped, if you changed the pace of your life so that there was more relaxation, more joy, more time to dream up great ideas. Real healing means that you're going to need space for trust to develop. You can leave things unfinished sometimes. You can let people face their own consequences. You can still care deeply. You can still lead. You can still love. You can still work hard. But now it's from a place of faith that everything can turn out okay, even if you don't manage it. You don't have to keep proving your worth by preventing chaos. You've already done enough of that for a lifetime. You get to stop managing every moving part and just let life carry some of the weight. That's not selfish. That's freedom. So if you're sitting there exhausted from doing everything, resentful that it always has to be you, this is your cue. Let go a little bit. It's the only way to find out where the line is, what you must do, and what you're doing out of some old reflex that if you don't do it, you'll never be safe. Let go. You'd be surprised how life doesn't collapse. It keeps going on like a river with a momentum of its own. It's kind of warm, it's mostly gentle, and it's your turn to just a little bit, just see where the river takes you. If you like this video, I've got one that you're going to love right here, and I'll see you very soon. And it's hard to perceive accurately what's going on in those moments. Like, what just happened? What's the actual problem? Is it me? Is it the other person? What am I supposed to say?